Alright guys, welcome. This is a quick demo on how to get the SQL Server data tools installed and the SQL Server Developer Edition installed, especially for those of you that are working with Macs or just don't want to install the tools locally. This is an option to do it using some cloud tools, Microsoft Azure. You can sign up free for a 30-day trial. They give you $200 in credits. Should be plenty for what we need to do. So assuming you've done that, you can log into the portal.azure.com website with your ID that you signed up. And then what we're going to do is create a virtual machine that's going to be used to install our SQL Server data tools. So I'm going to go ahead and click the little plus sign, and that's going to allow me to create a new virtual machine. I'm actually going to install a Windows Server 2016 virtual machine. So it's the very first one, it's the most popular. I'll go ahead and click on that. And then it walks me through some options to choose, and really you don't have to pick too many of these. You have to pick whatever your subscription is. A resource group, that's just a way to when you create the virtual machine, there's a few other things that get created with it. They all get put into this group. Makes it easy to remove when you're done. So I'm going to create a new one and call this INST 728A Summer 2019, and that looks like it will be acceptable, so I'll say okay to that. Then once that's created, I can give the virtual machine a name, and I'll give it a similar name that also has some rules. Looks good. We'll call this SQL. How's that? Have to put what data center in the cloud I'm going to put it in, so someplace close would probably make sense. I'll do ECUS. I don't need any infrastructure redundancy. This is the image I want to use. Data center is a good one that's made for running SQL. One virtual CPU. That's not a lot of memory, especially for a SQL machine, so I'm going to change that, give it a little more memory. It'll cost a little more to run per hour, but I'm not going to run it all day. I'm not going to run it 24/7. I'm only going to turn it on when I need to use it, and then I'll turn it off when I'm done with it. I'm going to start it back up when I need it. So you can see the different costs on the different sizes. Right now, I think, what am I on? Something like smallish, which is fine. I just need a little more memory. We don't really need premium disks. These are just filters. But let's look down here. General purpose is fine. What did they say we were at? D2, I think they said D1. Yeah, we had one. So we were here. I just want to get a little more memory. I don't want to double the price either. So let's see here. What can we do for memory-wise? We just up the memory with keeping that's a little bit, that's double, but that does give me a decent bit more memory. Fine, we'll go with this two CPUs and 7 RAM. That shouldn't be bad, so let's select that. Give it a username and a password. Confirm that password. Oh, it looks like it's not long enough. Now it should be long enough. Okay, great. I have to allow some ports. You have to at least allow remote desktop, because we're going to need to remote desktop into this virtual machine. So when you click on ports, at least let RDP in. Later, if we're going to do, we could always do some other ports if we need it, but RDP is at least what we're going to need for now. I'm going to say I do already have it'll be a little bit cheaper to run, and I do already have a Windows license, so I'm going to say yes to that. I'm going to confirm that, and then I'm going to go to next and check out the disks. So let's see. I don't want premium. That costs a lot. That means premium will charge me even when the machine's off. So this step's important. Make sure you change this to standard. Definitely don't want premium. What else do we want to do? That looks good. Say next. Networking, this is all usual stuff. I don't have to change anything here. I already selected RDP. And then the next few things, management, we don't really care about. So I'm just going to click review and create. Looks like it's going to be 14 cents an hour. Seems pretty good. Everything's valid. I'm going to go tell it to create. So this is going to take a few minutes. It's going to deploy my virtual machine out into the cloud. Once it's done, I'll be able to connect to it and install the tools. Okay, looks like our deployment is complete. So now I'm going to go here and click the button to go to my resource. That's going to take me to the overview page of my virtual machine. You can see there's things like activity log, access control, tags, etc. But the overview is what I need. I can see that it's running. If it wasn't running, I could start it here. When I'm done with it, I can stop it. If I need to reboot it, I can actually restart it from here. In this case, I'm going to go and connect to it because I want to actually install the two tools that we need to get installed. So I'm going to just download the remote desktop file. And that should pop up in a second. And I'll say connect. Now on Mac it's going to be a little different, but it should be pretty much the same process. In this case, when I go to connect, I'm not going to use Windows is coming up with my Windows credentials, and that's not what I need. So I need to click on more choices. Use a different account and specify the account that I created, which in my case was just David E. Patrick, and then the password that I put in. But I need one more thing. I need to make sure that the domain is what is at the remote computer. So an easy way to do that is to put a / in there, and that's just going to say, hey, don't use whatever domain I'm on, use the one that I'm connecting to. So / and then the username that I created when I created the resource. Give it the password that I created when I selected when I created the resource. I keep it, tell it to remember me, and I'll say OK to connect. So now it's going to reach out there, connect to that new virtual machine, passing those credentials. It's the first time I'm doing it, so yes, I'm going to trust it. And now I'm remoted into that virtual machine. Again, if you're on a Mac, when you remote into the other machine, it's like you're in a Windows machine. I know a couple people mentioned trying to use Docker. I'm not sure I recommend Docker for this particular requirement. We're running SQL Server Analysis Services, and I haven't had a lot of, it uses, as I mentioned, uses a bit more memory, or needs a bit more memory. So I'm not sure Docker is going to do it for you on a Mac. I do recommend, if you're on a Mac, using this method where you just create a Windows virtual machine with a decent amount of memory and then remote desktoping into it. So that's what we've done so far. I haven't installed either of the tools yet. So once this guy fires up, that's my next step, is to install the SQL Server Developer Edition, which is free and fully featured. And then I don't need to do that, so we'll say no to that. Then the other option is, or the other tool that we need is the SQL Server Data Tools, which allows us to connect to the SQL Server database. It's firing up. This is a server that I created. The image I chose was Windows 2016 Data Center. So by default, when you log into this server, it's coming up with Server Manager, so you can make modifications to the server as needed. I think there's one modification I'm going to change. I'm going to go ahead here and click on Local Server under Server Manager, so I can modify the local server. And I'm going to turn off the, where is it? Enhanced security configuration. So it's on by default, which is good if you're on a production machine, but this is, we're doing development here, we're doing training. So I'm going to turn that off for everybody, both administrators and users, and that'll make it a little bit easier to download some of the tools that we need to download. So I've turned that off, I think. Off. It says it's off, even though it says it's still on here. Let's close the manager tools, or server manager, excuse me. Open up Internet Explorer and see if we can download SQL Server Development Studio. So a couple people, I saw a couple people had gotten, as far as getting onto the portal Azure, but they haven't done, these are the important steps. Recommended security settings. This all sounds fine. It's telling me that I turned off that, which is good. I wanted that off. Then I'm going to come in here and, like I said, I'll just Google it. The first thing, like I said, is we will install SQL Server Server Developer Edition, version 2017. 2019 is coming out. It's in preview right now, but we'll stick with the tried and true 2017 edition. So come down here. I probably could have clicked the first link too. I just have a habit of skipping over the first link. I'm going to try it. And we want specifically, no, we don't want to participate in any. We want Windows. We want Windows. And let's see. Not the RTM. Oh, I somehow skipped over it. Let me go back. I probably should have clicked on that first link. There we go. I don't know. I should have scrolled down there. So under, when I got to this point, I should have scrolled down instead of hitting try it now, which brings up, an actual trial. I don't want that. I want the developer edition. So scroll down, developer. I don't want the data sheet. I want to download it. All right, hang on here. Go back to my search. This third link looks promising. I want the developer edition. I guess I could have just went to Elms and clicked on the link that I provided you guys. Here we go. Yes, I want the developer edition. Yes, save. Run. That looks better. So this will take a few minutes. We'll go custom. Yep, that looks good. I chose custom because I'm going to make sure I choose SQL Server Analysis Services, which is used for data warehousing, which is what we're really interested in. So you could, by default, I think it just installs the database engine, which is not enough. We want to make sure we get analysis services. We also want to make sure we get SQL Server integrated integration services. That's going to have some tools for us to do data profiling that we're going to look at later. So that's why I chose custom. I want to make sure that when I install SQL Server, I get some of these extras that we're going to need for the different modules that we're going to look at some of these different topics. So it's downloading the media, it's extracting the setup files. It takes a couple minutes, but it's not terribly long. So we'll hang out here and let this stuff come out. All right, finished the download. Now it's actually starting the install. I can go ahead and minimize this window. We'll see the install in process. So when the install pop, this is the installation center. This is where we need to say, hey, we want to install a new SQL Server instance. So we'll click on installation. And we're going to say we want to install not the management tools, but we do want to do this, but not yet. We want to actually do a new SQL Server standalone installation. So we're going to check that under installation. We're doing the developer edition. We accept the license terms. It checks to make sure my machine supports all this. Because we chose a data center, we know it does. We can say updates. We'd like updates. So now it's going to install some of the setup files. Looks like everything's good. Warns us about the firewall. We can, by default, the ports that SQL Server needs are being blocked, but we're not going to really talk over those ports. We're going to always log in locally, so that's okay. Now here's the important part. We're going to say, what do we want? We want the database engine. We don't need replication. We don't need machine learning. Full text, no. Data quality, I think we actually are going to do something with that, so we'll check that off. Analysis services, we definitely want that. Data quality, let's take that. Integration services and master data services. That sounds good. Let's choose. I'll go through those again. Database engine, data quality, analysis, data quality, integration, master data. So that all looks good. We'll click next. Default instance sounds good. These are some of the default services that come with SQL Server, so that all looks good to me. I want to be in mixed mode. We could do Windows authentication mode, but mixed mode is a little more flexible. So we'll do mixed mode, and that just means I have to set up a password for the system administrator account, otherwise known as the SA account. So again, I'll give it some nice, long, complex password. And I'm also going to add the current user, which is myself. That's the current Windows user. So once I click on that, there we go, you can see that's the name of the machine, that's the current user, and that's just, now I have two system admins. I've got one that's SA, and then I have another one that is the Windows account. So I feel good about that, and click next. There were a few other options I kind of skipped over. Let me back up. The data directories, I'm accepting all the defaults. TempDB, accepting all the defaults. File stream, accept all the defaults. So, I didn't even click on them. I'm just going to accept the defaults. This is important. Which mode do we want to be? By default, it's the tabular mode, but we're going to talk a lot about multidimensional in data warehousing, so we're going to switch that to data multidimensional mode. So it's important. And again, here I'm going to add the current user. This is for analysis services. So earlier when I added the user, it was for, if I back up, the database engine, which is different than analysis services. So make sure you add the user both on. And this one's important because the only way you can connect to analysis services is using this account. There's no SA account here. So we've added that as well. Finally, it gives me a little summary, everything I've chosen, all my properties, all the defaults. I like it. I'm going to say install. And now it's going to use those choices to do the installation of the various features. So it's going through and it's installing the features. You'll see each one listed as it installs it. Still chugging along here. I paused the video so you have to see everything that it was doing. So it's getting close. Looks like we're almost done installing. At least my progress bar is about all the way over to the right. So I'm very excited. It's been a few minutes. We did choose quite a few things to install. While it's doing that, I'll move that over to the side. Get ready to do the install server data tools. So I'll go ahead and click that while this is finishing up there. Make that a little bit smaller so we can see it side by side. Alright, so over here we're going to, oh, looks like it finished. Figures. As soon as I did that, I knew that would happen. Everything succeeded. That's very exciting. We will close that. Now we're ready for the server data tools. Gives us some information about it. We want analysis services, integration services, reporting services. Sure, why not? So let's run the SQL Server Data Tools standalone installer. We'll go ahead and download that. Run that. This should take a significantly shorter amount of time than the SQL Server did. Should also have less options. So we'll come in here and click next. Yes, we want all that. Install. And off it goes. And just like SQL Server, it's got to go download the media first, then start the installation. But you can see it's not taking, it's not near as big as SQL Server. You can see the different versions that it's installing, support for some of the previous versions. And again, what this is, the SQL Server Data Tools, is the client tools. So this is what we use to interact with the server. A lot of times these tools will actually be on a different machine than the server. You know, typically the server would be on one machine or a set of machines. It might be a cluster of SQL servers that all support each other in a redundant fashion. But your data tools, you know, each developer, each database developer or data scientist or whatever would have their own set of tools on their laptop or whatever machine they're using to connect to the servers. So this is going to take another minute to do the actual install. I'll go ahead and pause the video. All right, it looks like the setup is completed from SQL Server Data Tools. Let's close that out. We're done with this guy and with this guy. Now we're done with the installation. We can actually run SQL Server setup or SQL Server Data Tools and connect to both our database engine and our SQL analysis.